a rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but that beauty a rich man's world.
You're listening to the Breakdown Podcast, presented by Flea Flicker Highlights. Welcome to a very special episode of the Breakdown Podcast presented by Flea Flicker Highlights. I'm your host, Wade Rainey, joined this time by only one of my co-hosts, Pal Patel. This is the World Cup preview episode, and Tyler had another commitment today. He was not able to make it, but we got to get this out before Sunday, and God knows we're not doing it tomorrow. So this was the only time we could record on Friday.
This is our first special episode that kind of goes beyond our like normal schedule, and I hope that we're able to give you a different kind of perspective, especially whenever we talk about sports. I think that the way we cover soccer is going to be a lot different from the way that we look at NFL and NBA. And I think that the topics that we choose to talk about and the way that we analyze them will be very different. And I hope that's something that you guys end up enjoying.
Yeah, I mean, the World Cup is here. We made it. 4 years since 2018 in Russia. Mm-hmm. And
it's in Qatar in November and December.
There's a different sort of feeling about it. And we would be remiss to not mention some of the issues around this World Cup. And I'm going to read a passage from an article, The Bandwagon's Guide to the World Cup, written by Brian Phillips on The Ringer, that I think encapsulates the feeling surrounding it. There is a vast amount of reporting covering the corruption of the FIFA Executive Committee, which allowed Qatar to buy the World Cup, the human rights abuses inflicted on thousands of migrant workers during Qatar's preparation for the tournament, which in many cases resulted in their deaths, the country's punitive treatment of the LGBTQ population, and its blatant use of the world's most popular sports tournament to launder its own international image. None of this is a joke. All of this is grim, in reference to the decision by FIFA to award Qatar the World Cup. While this is the first World Cup ever held in the Middle East, that's a good thing for a competition that purports to be the whole world championship. Just some things about how there are people defending Qatar. Defenders of Qatar argue that critical coverage of the World Cup has been driven mostly by American and European racism, but that's a clumsy attempt to muddle the issue. The big issue here is the migrant workers. Over 6,500 people died building the stadiums in Qatar for this World Cup under terrible conditions. And so, there's a cloud hanging over this World Cup for sure, certainly. And as more issues continue to arise, just today they announced they wouldn't be selling beer in stadiums. Budweiser pays $75 million to have their name all over this World Cup. So we'll see what happens with that. But Pal, if you want to comment on any of the issues surrounding the World Cup before we get into the actual soccer, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's impossible to talk about this World Cup and not talk about all the headlines that have come out throughout the entire process. I mean, this scandal goes back, now we know, to even beyond 2009 when the official bid process was held. And I think that it's not only this World Cup. I think that or at least in my opinion, it's also tainted the way I look back at the Russia 2018 World Cup. Just thinking about the other places that it could have been held. Personally, I haven't been to a World Cup match or anything, but it also hasn't helped that the places that it's been held have been places where I personally can't, make that travel happen, just whether it's the time of the season with Qatar or where it is. And I think that that's a sentiment felt by a lot of fans that are, like me, based in America. And that's not the case for everyone, but the biggest storyline has to be the migrant workers. honestly, the crisis is not talked about enough, in my opinion. I think that it's one of the biggest humanitarian cases in the past 3-4 years, and I feel like it just hasn't gotten enough coverage or doesn't have a lot of people asking why. And a lot of these people were from India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and a lot of these workers were people that were just trying to make a better life than the one they had back at home, and they just happened to get caught in other people's wrongdoings, costed them their lives. Countless families traumatized from this, and that's going to be an undertone for this entire World Cup. But it doesn't take away from what the players and the teams are going to produce on the pitch.
Yeah, I know, and the players, the coaches, they're in a tough situation. You know, a World Cup for some of these guys, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. This is what players play careers for.
This is what you dream about.
It's playing in a World Cup.
Yeah, from your first days playing soccer, that's like the dream that you have is playing in the World Cup, winning the World Cup for your country, and historically, it's the most like captivating sporting event in the history of the world.
Yeah, billions of people. Billions upon billions of people watch World Cup every year.
It's expected that 5 billion people will be tuning into this year's World Cup.
So that's 62.5% of the world's entire population. So over half the people on the planet will be watching the World Cup. So let's get right into the groups here. We'll go brief overview of all the teams, and then we'll pick some favorites and awards towards the end.
Let's get into it. So the World Cup features 32 teams. For those of you who do not know, 8 groups. So groups of 4, and that's the first round. And then afterwards, it's like a tournament, like a bracket style. So let's talk about Group A.
Yeah, Group A. Ecuador, Netherlands, Qatar, and Senegal. I think every single one of these teams, except for maybe Qatar, will be looking at this group and thinking, hey, maybe we'll be okay. Starting with Ecuador, qualified out of South America, you have to be good to do that. However, they play at altitude at home.
That's their whole thing. So their stadium, that place is legendary. It was huge in getting them points during the qualification process.
However, looking at their roster, this is an exciting young team. Some names that jump out at me: Piero Hincapié, only 20, but plays consistently in Germany for Bayer Leverkusen. Purvis Estupiñán, who's a permanent fixture in Brighton teams nowadays that seem to be knocking off everybody. Moises Caicedo, also at Brighton. Jeremy Sarmiento, also at Brighton. All those guys are under 24. So good, young, exciting players.
There's another guy I want to talk about, man. Enner Valencia. He plays in Turkey. And he's one of the Turkish league's top scorers. He plays for
Fenerbahce.
Yeah.
Fenerbahce. I don't know how to say Turkish things.
He's the country's all-time leading goal scorer. So this is probably his last World Cup as well. So that'll be another storyline to kind of keep your eyes on.
Yeah, and I definitely think. You'll get to when we talk about the other couple of teams in this group that. The 3 top teams in this group all have a very legitimate shot at getting out. Moving on to the Netherlands. This is my pick to win this group. Coached by Louis van Gaal, a very experienced international manager. They crushed it in qualifying.
They were ridiculous in qualifying.
And looking at this squad, this roster, I can see why. They got great players at every position. Champions League level players at every position. They have guys who can score goals, like who can go out there and just get you a goal, and like a guy like Luke de Jong. They have super exciting talents who are hitting form at the right time, and Jakpo and Simons, Jeremy Frimpong playing very well in Germany. And then they have established international stars: Frankie de Jong, Virgil van Dijk.
Memphis Depay.
I would put in that category as well. I see little doubt is the goalkeeper position. 3 names that not a lot of even avid soccer fans will recognize, and none of them have over 6 appearances for the national team.
Yeah.
So one of them has to play and one of them has to perform on the world's biggest stage, and they haven't played much for the
It'll
team.
probably
already.
be Justin Bilo. He plays in the Netherlands, in Eredivisie player. I want to shout out Nathan Ake as well. He's a City guy. He'll probably get to play. And also wanted to I think that Xavi Simons will have a breakout World Cup. I really like the Netherlands. I think they'll win the group as well. I think that I think they have a shot to go deep. They're in great form. They won their Nations League group. I'm not sure how much the Nations League counts right now, but they were in the group with Poland, Belgium, Wales, and they came out on top.
Yeah, if you don't know what the Nations League is, look it up. I don't feel like explaining it.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Let's talk about the other team that could possibly win this group.
Well, I just want to touch base on Qatar real quick because this is the order that this article's in. One thing I will say about Qatar, I know absolutely nothing about them. They all play domestically in Qatar, but the Qatari domestic league paused like 3 months earlier than every other league on the planet. So they will have a sort of togetherness that some of these other teams might not.
Plus, these guys have been playing together for over 10 years.
Their entire team is domestically based. If I had to pick some players to watch, I suppose Almoez Ali would be one. He has 85 appearances for the national team, 42 goals. Their captain, Hassan Al-Haydos. But yeah, I know nothing about Qatar. I don't expect them to do anything. I think they finished last in the group.
Qatar, like I said, this team has been playing together for upwards of 10 years. These guys came through the academy together, have been playing together their whole lives, have known each other their whole lives. And this is their first World Cup appearance. They got in as the host. They probably might have qualified through the Asia system as well. They've played pretty well. They've been tested against the best competition. They've been playing in other confederations
Tournaments they played in the Gold Cup.
So they've gotten experience, and so I mean, I think they're just in a group that's a little bit unfortunate, because the group is a little bit better than them. All the other teams are, and that might hurt them. But this isn't a bad little squad, and they could get a few points. I mean, the adrenaline rush is crazy. Playing for your country in the World Cup at home is a feeling that not very many people have gotten, and so it could help them do the unthinkable.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. It'll say a lot. They play the opener against Ecuador on Sunday, so I guess we'll see from there.
That'll be a tone setter, because they could come out and lose by 2-3 goals, or we'll see what they do.
The last team in this group, Senegal, who I think it'll be a dogfight between them and Ecuador for second. I think Senegal probably comes out on top. The African champions. The biggest news here, though, is who's not going to the World Cup, and that is Sadio Mane.
He's
heartbroken.
One of the best.
Heartbroken for him. Suffered an injury in Bayern Munich's last game, so he'll be out of the World Cup. But still, looking at this team, you just see like guys who are established European talents and like just good, solid players.
They're solid. They're solid in the back. With Koulibaly, Mendy, the two Premier League.
Yeah, Czech Koyate as well
guys,
he's been playing well for Nottingham Forest.
I think, dude, Ismail Sarr.
Yeah, Ismail Sarr is an exciting player.
He didn't get to play very much during their AFCON run. He wasn't available, but he's like made it back, and now that Mane's out, he'll have a chance to have a role that he wouldn't have had.
Yeah, with Mane out, that's the big question for Senegal is where does that spark come from? And is it Ismail Sarr? Can Boulaye Dia perform? He has in the past for the national team. I mean, Bamba Dieng at Marseille, a young player, perhaps off the bench.
Yeah, this isn't that exciting of a group though. All in all, especially with Mane being out, I think the Netherlands shouldn't have any trouble getting out, and then like you said, Senegal and Ecuador will probably fight it out for that second spot. But let's talk about Group B.
Yeah, the United States' group, and the group with the most political strife, is what I'll say.
It's crazy, bro. This could be World War III.
So we'll talk about the United States last. But let's start off with our big, I would imagine, what fans would say biggest rivals in this group, and that would be England. Coached by Gareth Southgate, still perhaps controversially, but we know what England brings to the table. Everyone in their squad based in the Premier League, except for, of course, Jude Bellingham, who plays for Borussia Dortmund, and I mean quality all over the pitch. Where I think they might struggle a little bit is center back. And then, of course, you had the injuries to the fullbacks as well. Ben Chilwell went down. Reece James, unfortunately, as well. But Trent Alexander-Arnold is in, and the Three Lions. Is it coming home?
I'm not sure. I don't want to rule them out just because they have a lot of guys that they're coming in well tested, coming off that Premier League grind, and I think that they'll be one of the sharper teams because these guys have played together as well. One thing about Southgate is that he is consistent, and so the squad that he had in mind for the World Cup was one that would have been comfortable with each other, and I think that the addition of Trent will make this team better. We know that Southgate preferred not to play him because of his lack of defending skill, I guess. And I think that Trent will be able to provide exactly what England needs because England is coming off a horrible Nations League. They were unable to score goals. They lost to teams they shouldn't have, and I think that they'll be hungry. I think they will. And I want to shout out. We have his jersey up back there. Phil Foden, my favorite player, one of my favorite players in the world. I hope he has a good World Cup. I think he'll have a larger role. I think we all kind of know now that he is better than Mason Mount. And I think Southgate realizes it as well. So I personally am very excited to see Phil Foden, and I think he'll have a great World Cup.
I hate to break it to you, but it's going to be Sterling, Kane, and Mount across the front three. But that's just what's going to happen. Because it's Gareth Southgate, and he won't play his best players. But where I see a little shake is in defense, and specifically central defense. They have Ben White, who's been playing very, very well for Arsenal, but the names of John Stones, Harry Maguire, Connor Cody, they don't exactly inspire a lot of confidence out of me. Eric Dyer as well, so that could be something to exploit. But they are probably the best team in the group, and I am picking them to win it, is what I will also say. I mean, they're definitely the best team in the group. But moving on to Iran. An Iran squad that is an interesting spot right now with everything that's going on in Iran. There are apparently locker room rifts between those who support the women's rights protests and those who do not. So that'll be something to maybe watch going in. But with Carlos Queiroz at the helm, they're going to sit deep and defend and try to hit on the counter, hit it up to guys like Mehdi Taremi, and just play some terrible soccer, and try and get a good result out of that. But the one thing that does worry me about Iran is they have proven European talent up front. Mehdi Taremi has performed in the Champions League.
Sardar Azmoune, he plays for Leverkusen in the Bundesliga. He's a player they have up top. I think he'll have a good World Cup as well. The two of them will probably be the strike partnership up top for them.
Yeah, and then with players like Saman Ghoddos and Alireza Jahanbakhsh in midfield as well, they have some solid talent. In terms of the U.S., against them, the U.S. has struggled breaking down low blocks in qualifying and in the past. So that'll be the matchup to watch there. I think, though, if we're going to get out of this group, we have to beat Iran.
Iran.
Iran. but that's a must-win game regardless.
Yeah, and I think that when we look at this U.S. team, we know what we're gonna see already, which is kind of comforting because I like the team that we have.
And now this is a game to the other maybe must-win. The other must-win game in the group, if you're looking at it that way, Wales. An interesting team, one that is in the World Cup for the first time in a very long time. So I'm kind of scared that they have that energy behind them. I'm scared that this is Gareth Bale's gonna be last swan song probably in the sport. So that makes me nervous as a United States fan. Guys like Aaron Ramsey, Kiefer Moore, they're guys that are performing right now at a high level in a top 5 league. Ben Davies, Nico Williams in defense, Chris Metham in defense. It's a very solid. It's a solid squad. But what do you think about this Wales team?
I think they're good. They're very versatile, especially in midfield. And Gareth Bale, I think, is coming off on a pretty good high after he was able to fuel LAFC in their MLS Cup win. I think that was probably the highest high of his career in a while, probably since Wales qualified for the World Cup. And I think that we look at Gareth Bale now as one of these guys that's going to be around just for the national team. I think that we've kind of figured that out. He has a lot of passion for his country, and it's amazing to watch. I always cheer for him whenever I've seen them, in an international tournament or just in friendlies and in general. They're like the underdog story. They're scrappy, and I'm upset that we have to play them. We could very well see Gareth Bale just explode. We have guys that should be able to contain him, but I mean, it's such a fine line, and Gareth Bale has that kind of class, and class is permanent. Form is temporary, right? So he just has that special something. He's scored Champion League winning, game winning, tournament winning goals. I mean, he's a special player, and like you said, this is his last major chance to do something in this sport, and I think that he will not take it lightly.
I don't know if you're counting an MLS Cup with LAFC as major or not, but I'm going to decide to not count that as something major
For him personally, compared to where he's been.
Yeah.
The fact that he wasn't, I mean, he got excommunicated out of Real Madrid. It was kind of sad to see, and he was then able to collect himself, took a very obvious demotion to the MLS, worked on himself. He was injured for a little while, and was able to bring Wales to its first World Cup in 64 years. I mean, that's an impressive feat.
Yeah, and so on to the team that everyone will be most interested in hearing about. Maybe you're not most interested about it, but I think you will be. The United States of America, back. Missed out in 2018, the biggest embarrassment in U.S. men's soccer history. They're back, and I'm excited. I'm really, really excited, and I am optimistic as well. I think that once again, you look at this list of players, and it's all guys who, are able to perform at in top 5 leagues in Europe. At least those who will be starting. Our bench does worry me a bit. I think we'll be okay in attack because no matter what, we'll be able to bring one of Tim Weah, Brendan Aronson, or Gio Reyna off the bench. So I think we're okay in that regard. But the defense and midfield worry me a little bit if one of Musa, McKinney, and Adams gets hurt. Acosta's a solid substitute, but beyond him, I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't have a ton of faith in Luca De La Torre. The big story is the center backs. The pairing seemed to be Walker Zimmerman and Aaron Long going in, Aaron Long has been just absolutely terrible. So who do you think should start at center back in Game 1 versus Wales for the U.S.?
So I think Tim Ream is in 100%. He's played well at Fulham. I think he's had a great run with the national team in qualifying. I think he's deserved it. And then the other spot, it's a toss up between Aaron Long, Walker Zimmerman. And I think Walker Zimmerman should be in. And then obviously Dest on the right with Robinson on the left.
Yeah, I like our fullback selection. I can appreciate that Greg Berhalter chose to bring Joe Scally, who can play on the left or the right.
Agreed.
Serginho Dest can play on the left or the right as well.
I think Carter Vickers I'm glad. I know that he was most likely going to be in, but I think that he's also a solid backup option that we have.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll see what Christian Pulisic and company can do. But I'm excited. I think this US team have the tools. They have the tools to get out of the group for sure. And then after that, anything can happen. But you got to get these games against Wales and Iran because you don't want to bank on having to get a result against England to save your World Cup.
How confident are you in Matt Turner?
I'm very confident in Matt Turner. I think he's a great player. I'm glad he's our number one. I feel bad for Zach Steffen that he isn't that he's not coming at all. But I have a ton of faith in Matt Turner. I think he's a great shot stopper, and above all, in a World Cup where maybe you're gonna have to abandon the playing out of the back principle a little bit in favor of just trying to win a game. Having that elite level shot stopper is more important than having a guy with really nice distribution.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I just think that he proved himself. Matt Turner did throughout the course of the qualifying cycle and before that, whenever he first introduced himself into the World Cup or into the national team squad, on his insane run in the MLS at New England. He played for the Revolution and he was on a ridiculous tear, led the league in clean sheets, and really put himself on the map. And he's just been on the upward path his entire time, both professionally and on the national team.
Yeah, so I mean, the U.S. plays on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern here. I'm so excited for the World Cup to finally be back in the U.S. Get out to a sports bar, catch the game, get swept up in World Cup fever. It's the best time. It's the best time of the year, even though it's in winter this year. Moving on to Group C, group with one of the favorites, Argentina. So we'll get right to them first. Obviously, Lionel Messi is the catalyst. He's the story. He is the moment, as they say.
Potential last World Cup for
I think
the greatest
definite last World Cup
of all time.
I mean, he's 35.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is absolutely probably his last one.
Okay.
And
so his last World Cup, and I think that the storyline is pretty obvious. He wins this, he's the best all time.
Undisputed.
Yeah.
Completely undisputed.
It's been the World Cup is what every player has chased at some point in their career, and I think that this is his best shot ever as well.
Oh yeah, more than any that. Of course, they made the final in 2014, lost to Germany, but this is definitely the most well-balanced Argentina team that has been to a World Cup in the last few years, top to bottom. Reliable players in defense, reliable players in the midfield.
They solved the question in the keeper spot 2 years ago with Martinez. That was a huge question mark that they had, and they had that question mark during 2014 during that run, and after that they haven't been able to solve it until they found Martinez. He plays in the Prem. He's a name that everyone should be familiar with.
Yeah. And he's very good goalkeeper in the Premier League. But I mean, this is one of those. This is an Argentina team that I think is going to come out and play an attractive style. They're going to look. They're going to be like one of the few teams that looks good, like playing.
They're going to be fun to watch.
They're going to be fun to watch. Of course, you'll have Lionel Messi.
Obvious pull.
You need to if you need to watch Lionel Messi play. It's like even if you don't watch soccer, you should try and witness probably the greatest player of all time play.
Most definitely the greatest player of all time. He is so magical with the ball at his feet. Even now, at 35, he's still going to be the best player on the pitch. Doesn't matter what game he's playing in. And I think that he'll make this a memorable World Cup for himself. And definitely have to talk about the supporting cast. Christian Romero, he's going to be a huge part of this team. And I think that, personally, I've been a fan of him for a while. I think he'll have a good World Cup. Lautaro Martinez, the Inter Milan striker, he's going to be playing up top alongside Di Maria and Messi, so he'll have his chances. And we'll see who gets it done for him. But I do expect them to go deep in this World Cup.
Yeah, moving on to Mexico. This Mexico team, I think there is some cause for concern, just based on what I've seen from them in qualifying and in the last few months. They're not very good.
Yeah.
They made it through CONCACAF. They finished equal on points with Canada, lost because of goal difference, but they didn't look good against good teams, and they managed to squeak out results against bad teams in CONCACAF qualifying. They drew to the U.S. at home in the Azteca. That is something that does not happen very often. The U.S. usually does not go into Mexico City and gets a result. That happened this year qualifying. And it's just a squad that I think is missing that certain spark for me. I mean, I could be a little biased as a U.S. fan, but
I don't have very many Mexican soccer fan friends, so I don't have that much just information about the general feel. But I think I have kind of figured out that there is a distaste for Tata Martino. He's been there for a while now, and there hasn't been very much development or progression of the national team. And I think in Mexico, seeing the U.S. get better during the Martino era, it's left a sour taste. You know what I mean? Like that has an effect. Another fact being is that like there have been kids that they turn 18 and they have the rare chance of picking what national team they play for because of their parents' citizenship statuses or where they were born and anything like that. And I think that there have been more high-level players pick the USA in more recent years.
Yeah, that's also why it would have been nice to see Ricardo Pepi get a spot on the U.S. men's national team to have 100%. That Mexican-born player. But that's an issue for another day, another time.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that while we were covering the men's national team, maybe because he's not on the roster. But I do believe that he should have been.
But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I have the next team that we're going to talk about coming out of this group and over Mexico, and that is Poland. I think Lil Yachty I can't say that. Ever since Lil Yachty took the walk to Poland, I've had more faith in them as a World Cup squad. Obviously,
there's this insane video that came out today where their national team was on a flight leaving Poland, and there were two F-16s like right behind their plane. Like I'm talking like 100 feet, not 100 feet, literally, but like actually right behind them, in the sky.
Yes, escorting them.
It was awesome. Yeah, escorting them because of the obvious crisis going on in Poland. So not a good reason for it, but the picture was insane. And it just gives you perspective of what these guys are going through on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's a big story. Robert Lewandowski has been scoring goals as he always does at a ridiculously high rate. One thing where I think Poland might struggle is the service, getting him the ball. He he's a great player, but he's not a Lionel Messi. He can't pick the ball up in midfield and dribble past 6 people and create a scoring opportunity. He needs a certain level of service, and that'll be the doubt, is if Poland can give that to him. They're lacking a bit in wide areas, but they do have creative players like Piotr Zielinski, who I think could be a very important piece for them in midfield.
Yeah, he alongside he plays in Serie A, plays at Napoli. He's a good talent, man. I think he'll be able to service Lewandowski pretty well. I expect Poland to be able to score some goals. They play a rather attractive style, I will say, for a team that needs to sit back and defend. They do it less, and they do it a little bit more stealthily. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know. I think they do play a pretty fun style to watch. They have Matty Cash back there as well. I think he'll get a chance to make some plays. The way that they'll play with the fullbacks, because I mean that's where Poland has talent in a bit of excess, is the fullback position. Now they have a 20-year-old Zalewski. I'm not sure how to say his last name. He played for Roma though. That's how I know him. And he's only played 44 games in his senior career, and he's 20 years old. He's going to be a bright young talent, and I think he might get a chance to shine for Poland.
Yeah, and the last team in this group, Saudi Arabia, they're not very good. I think every team in this group will probably beat them. Every player on in their squad plays in Saudi Arabia, so I don't know a lot about them. Just looking at their international statistics, player you're going to want to watch for is Salem Al Dawson, 17 goals and 71 appearances. But yeah, Saudi Arabia, they're going to be well supported, of course, locally, like at the actual tournament. But I don't see them doing a lot. Sorry to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, unfortunate with their group.
I mean, they would have had to have gotten a really bad group to.
Yeah, they're the second lowest ranked team in the field in the world rankings. Only Qatar is ranked below them, so not very many expectations for them in this tournament.
Yeah, and then moving on to another team where we can kind of do that same kind of review. Australia, gone are the days of Tim Cahill, and guys like that. A couple of ringers they could bring. Aaron Moyes in the squad, but he hasn't been able to get game time at Celtic. One thing I will say about Australia is they've been one of the most outspoken teams about the human rights abuses in Qatar, along with another team in this group that we'll get to in a second. But
yeah, Australia. I want to say just one more thing about they have a few guys that do play in Europe, maybe not at the best level. Jackson Irvine, I think, is a guy who we will get to see maybe excel for this side if they are to have some kind of success in this tournament. And yeah, let's talk about that other team.
Yeah, good for the Socceroos that they made the tournament, but I don't see them doing a lot. I have them finishing third or bottom in this group.
I think they'll finish third in this group. I think they also have a group where the other there's namely 2 teams that are just a cut above.
Yeah, and probably the dark horse of the tournament, besides the obvious favorites, I think a lot of people are projecting this team will do a lot, is Denmark. Also one of the most socially conscious teams, along with Australia at this World Cup. They've spoken out about the human rights abuses a lot, so you could call Group D the human rights group. But once again, just a team with quality all over the pitch. And these guys, this is a group that's been together. They made the Euro semifinals, of course. Lost to England, but you look at this team and you can see why people are picking them to, maybe make some noise.
Yeah, they've been ranked top 10 in the FIFA World rankings for a rather extended period of time, for more than 8 months now, and they did have a lot of success in the past Euros, where they showed that that these guys were able to play together well. This squad has been playing together for a few cycles now. And I think that the obvious names, I mean, the midfield with Eriksson and Højbjerg is gonna be pretty solid compared to a lot of the teams that they'll be facing.
Yeah, Christian Eriksen, miraculous that he's playing in this World Cup, of course, at Euro 2021, technically. He collapsed, his heart stopped on the pitch, and they were able to revive him on the field. He's now playing for Manchester United and is in absolutely sparkling form. So just amazing that he's able to be here, and I don't think that anybody who saw what happened in that Euros tournament thought that he would be here today, but he is. So that's a testament to him. But yeah, and Denmark, I mean, they've got guys who perform for the national team. Mikkel Damsgaard is one that comes to mind. He's an exciting winger. He recently made the move to Brentford over the summer. Yusuf Poulsen is a guy who performs for Denmark as well. But yeah, the togetherness of this squad and their organization is something that I think has convinced a lot of people that they can go far. A team that a lot of people are projecting to go farther than Denmark, though, is France. Another one of the favorites of the tournament. Just an embarrassment of attacking talent. But yeah, I mean, if you want to go through a couple of the players to watch for this France squad,
there's a
couple names that stick out.
There's definitely plenty of guys that I can name. I could basically go through the entire 11 and talk about all these guys, but namely Mbappe, arguably the face of football right now. The PSG star chose to stay in Paris this past summer. He'll be looking to repeat. Obviously, it was France that won the tournament last time around in Russia, and they'll be looking to repeat. They think they have the squad for it. Karim Benzema coming off the Ballon d'Or win. Dembele has been in a ridiculously good form. He's been amazing for Barcelona, carrying them at times almost. And then they also have talent in the midfield with Guendouzi, who's played in Ligue 1, who's been great. Camavinga and Tchouameni really stick out, the Real Madrid pairing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that not having Kante and Pogba will hurt them. Both of them are going to be missing this World Cup due to injury. But they've been staples for this national team for a long time, and they've been a large part of the success that this team has had in recent years. And I think that Camavinga and Tchouameni are not complete or perfect substitutes, but they'll definitely be serviceable. And I think that in the back they have Saliba and Ocampo and both the Hernandez brothers with Theo Hernandez and Lucas Hernandez. And I mean, Varane, I don't know if he's going to play or not. I know that he got hurt, but he's still on the roster. Jules Koundé, I mean, they have so many good defenders. This team is just stacked. And then Hugo Lloris in goal.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that France is all the favorites do have this as well, but France is a team, they have at least one world-class player in every area of the pitch except for goalkeeper, I would say. And I mean,
he certainly might not be world-class, but he's still,
Yeah,
he's still good.
It is worth noting that Hugo Lloris would probably not be starting this World Cup if there had not been an injury to Mike Maignan.
Yes. That was unfortunate for him. He would have been the starter. He's had, he's been one of those guys as well. He won the Serie A best goalkeeper last year after he was the backup the year before. I mean, he completely burst onto the scene. Did more than just challenge Lloris for his job. But, yeah, unfortunately, due to injury, Lloris will be captaining this France side.
Yeah, and then moving on to the last team in this group, Tunisia, another team I don't really expect to do a ton. They've got Hannibal Mejbiri, who plays for Manchester United. and then Birmingham City currently on loan, and then Wabi Kazri from Montpellier. He'll be a key player up front for them, but yeah, I think they'll be battling it out with Australia for the right to finish third in this group. I think it's pretty good. This is one that's pretty clear cut in terms of that. But moving on to Group E, Costa Rica. A couple of names that some people might recognize. Keylor Navas, of course. Still, a solid goalkeeper. Hasn't been able to get a game behind Gianluigi Donnarumma at PSG. Brian Ruiz is still playing for Costa Rica. If you remember him from their run to the quarterfinals all the way back in Brazil, at 37 years old, he's still kicking. But yeah, I mean, not a team that I would really expect. I mean, this is a pretty tough group actually. So Costa Rica got a tough draw with that, but maybe they can recreate some of that 2014 Brazil magic. I do not think that they can, though, given the other teams in this group. One of them being Germany, who I think is not quite a favorite, but they're always a team that you expect to play well and progress deep into the tournament. It's probably one of the weaker German squads that we've seen in the last few years. I think their real problem is in defense. Nico Schlotterbeck has been not very good recently. I mean, you have guys like Matheus Ginter, Antonio Rudiger, but that's probably the shakiest part of their team. Their midfield is very solid with guys like Goretzka, Kimmich, Jamal Musiala, of course, is probably their most important player at 19 years old. He's been ridiculous in the Bundesliga so far this year. I mean, but yeah, it's Germany's one of those teams. You don't see any real weaknesses. They've got players all over the pitch.
They have talent everywhere. This is a well-coached side. They'll definitely be very good technically, and they won't have any problem scoring goals. And they're solid. They're solid everywhere on the pitch, like you mentioned. And I think it's pretty obvious. I think that they shouldn't struggle in this group. But let's talk about the other teams as well.
And then so Japan is in this group, and it's one of the most interesting teams in this group because if not for Spain, who we'll talk about in a second, and Germany being in this group, I would pick Japan to get out of most of the other groups in the tournament if you just swap them out with another team. Maybe not the one we just talked about with Denmark and France. Like, there's a couple, but like most of them, Japan would get out. I mean, they're a very good team, and it's still, maybe they catch Spain and Germany off guard and can sneak out of the group. They've got guys who, are good, solid European level players. A lot of them in Germany. Kaoru Matoma is a name that sticks out to me. He's been very good for Brighton recently. Only 9 appearances for Japan, but he scored 5 goals. So he's been a very good player. Where I think maybe their weakest is in defense. Not a ton of established talent, but their midfield and their attack, it's very good, and they're very organized. They played the U.S. in a friendly in September and smoked us. I think the U.S. will have gotten better since then, but they kind of beat the brakes off us, and it's a team that they got unlucky with their draw, but they're good enough to still make something out of it.
Yeah, agreed. And I think you hit all the nails. And it's kind of unfortunate, I guess. But I mean, we've seen crazier things happen in the World Cup. Especially if one of the other more the better sides on paper, if one of them comes out a little bit flat-footed, who knows what will happen. And I think this Japan team is good enough to take advantage of those kinds of opportunities.
Yeah, moving on to Spain. And the Spanish question has been, where do the goals come from? And they still don't have the obvious goal scorer. That's a problem for a lot of the teams at this tournament, because scoring goals is the hardest thing to do in soccer. But it's another Spain, just another one of those nations where you see talent all over the pitch, but you have to get nitpicky to find their flaws. Who starts in their front three for you is what I'll ask, because they have an interesting selection of wide play of attackers as well and wide players.
Yeah. I think that. Well, it's different now. I think that's why it makes it so hard. I think that right now, I honestly couldn't tell you, just because of a lack of form on this side, for a lot of these guys. Just the attackers though.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Morata will have to start up top. I think that's kind of controversial take maybe. I just think that he should start. I think Asensio, in my opinion, should definitely be playing on the right over Ferran Torres. I know that Ferran Torres is a little bit picky about where and how he plays and everything. Part of the reason why he moved to Barca. If he can play on the left, or if Asensio can play on the left, that might be ideal. But I think that Asensio and Morata are 100% in. And that other spot, I personally think that Ansu Fati is good enough to where he could provide somewhat more of a spark than the other names. But I would understand the other picks as well for, Nico Williams, Jeremy Pino. I understand.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Ansu Fati on the left as well. I like the Alvaro Morata pick. Spain's coach Luis Enrique has come out and said how important Alvaro Morata is to the way that Spain wants to play.
Exactly. And I think that's a underrated trait. Is just the fact that he is able to fulfill a role for this team that no one else on that roster can.
I will, however, say I would start Ferran Torres coming off the right because of his goal record for Spain, and because of the fact that with Alvaro Morata in the lineup as your striker, you're probably going to need goals from another source.
That's fair. I think that Asensio is just a little bit more well-rounded, and I think that I personally think that if this team is to have a successful World Cup, I think that the midfield will have to get more involved in the goal production, and I think that they're good enough to be able to do that.
Yeah. Moving on to Group F.
One more thing. I think Spain will be a top four team. I think that's one of my
they make the Final Four
picks. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people would see that coming. I think that they're good enough, and definitely solid enough in the back. I don't think we spent enough time talking about that, but that defense is very dependable.
So moving on to Group F, a group that is another one where I think the top two teams are probably a little clearer. This one's interesting.
This one's very interesting in my opinion.
I still think that you've got kind of a clear-cut top two. The top one of that top two is Belgium. The golden generations probably last time together. Of course, they still have Kevin De Bruyne, world-class player, Thibaut Courtois, world-class player. But besides those two, you're not looking at any world-class guys. They have solid guys all over the pitch, but the difference between this Belgium team and the Frances, the Brazils, the Argentinas of the world is they don't have world-class guys at every level of the pitch. I will say, player to point out, I really, 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 really like Leandro Trossard. I think he's a very, very good player. Plays for Brighton in the Premier League. I don't know. He just has some it factor about him. He's got the goals. He can carry the ball. He's smart. He's tough. I really like him to have a breakout tournament and secure a big money move soon to a big club.
I like that pick. I like that pick.
What?
Oh, I was waiting for you. I was waiting for you.
Oh, no. Yeah, I mean, Belgium's a good team, and they're well coached. And this group, once again, we'll say it has been playing together. The core of this group has been playing together for a very, very long time.
Yeah, way too long.
Yeah, and so this is their last chance for this golden generation to, win something major. I don't see them doing so, but still a good opportunity for Belgium.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they'll win it. For many of the same problems. that they have, it's many of the same problems that they've had before holding them back now, and I don't see why they would be able to win it now compared to before. You know what I mean? Like if they weren't able to win it before, I don't see anything changing about this team. I think KDB will have a great tournament. He's one of the best players in the world, and this is just another stage for him to show it. I do expect Canada to make it out this group.
Yeah.
I think that they're on a great run. Morale is high. I mean, I know how streaky that team is, but they had sustained success during qualifying, and I think that that's a good enough showing for me to wanna believe in them.
I personally think that Canada probably wouldn't have been favored to get out of many groups in this tournament, but this is one where I think they might have had a shot, if not for the bad. They get a bad draw in terms of a matchup, I think, with the next team we'll talk about. But, Alphonso Davies is the story here, obviously.
He gets
kind of just plays when Canada plays Alphonso Davies, he kind of just plays on the left, and he's just got the whole left side and just runs up and down the pitch
he scores
the
and
Roadrunner.
Defends and does everything in between.
Another player to watch, Jonathan David, plays in France with Lille. Exciting young striker. That's probably going to be where their main source of goals will come from.
Those two, both of them. I think Davies will be able to get himself a few goals.
Tajon Buchanan as well on
Yeah.
the wing. Very good player.
I don't know this guy.
Sile Larin is another guy.
Mm-hmm.
Both those guys play for Club Brugge, who just won their Champions League group, so they're in good form. Atiba Hutchinson still playing for Canada, age 39, so one of the oldest players at this tournament as well. But yeah, I think Canada, they suffer because they get a tough draw. Belgium is definitely better than them, but the team that they would maybe beat out is Croatia. But with how good Croatia's midfield is, that's also an area where Canada's relatively weak.
That is one of Canada's biggest weaknesses.
And they've got the tools. I mean, you imagine the midfield three of Kovacic, Modric, and Brozovic. I think they carve Canada up. But
we'll see, man. We'll see. I hope not, just because that'd be sad to watch. I hope Canada does well. I have family that is Canadian, so that's kind of interesting. So I mean, I want them to do well. I hope that they're able to give Croatia a fight. They definitely have a reason to believe, though. I'll say that much.
Croatia. I mean, Luka Modric, obviously the engine's still running. Just an absolutely incredible player. I really, really like Ivan Perisic. I think he's a guy who has been underrated for a long time. Just a very, very solid, fundamental player. This is another team that suffers from the lack of a true recognized goal scorer. Of course, 4 years ago when they made the surprise run to the World Cup final, it was Mario Mandzukic. Now it might be Andre Kramaric. It might be that's kind of the only option up front, in terms of a striker. Bruno Petkovic is an interesting player as well, but I do think it'll be Kramaric. But they've got solid players everywhere. Another one of those teams that I think is just good everywhere. But they don't have that world class level.
I don't know if you mentioned Brozovic.
I did, yes, in that midfield.
I think the midfield is so strong. I mean, Perisic is also in decent form. I think it's worth mentioning. We'll see, man. I think this Croatia team is deep.
And then, another team, the final team in this group is also another team that, I look at the roster and they're not that bad.
Agreed.
Morocco fired their coach a few months ago, mainly because he didn't get on with Hakim Ziyech, who is back in the national team fold.
He is their best attacking player, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this team, what they do have, in my opinion, he struggled this season, but Yusuf En-Nesyri, he has the goals in him.
He does. Agreed.
He has the
Agreed,
goals
man.
in him, but it's just a matter of fact of whether he's going to be able to like stay consistent or not. Of course, they have Akraf Hakimi, one of the best right backs in the world, so he will certainly help their case as well. But yeah, a team with some good players, some special players, and one that certainly should not be overlooked by any team in this group.
Yeah, they have a Nazaruri, Zaroury plays for Burnley. Burnley is a future Premier League team. Can I say that?
Yeah.
So I guess he's worth a shout as well. They have more talent than you would think. And I think that they are in the fold as well with Canada and Croatia for that second spot. I think this will be a very competitive group, top to bottom.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Group G contains my favorite to win, and also maybe a couple of potential dark horses as well. My favorite to win, of course, is Brazil. Just a wealth of riches all over the field. Where they might struggle is in defense, specifically their fullback spots.
Mm-hmm.
However, the talent all over the rest of the field, especially in attack, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's unmatched, except maybe by France, in terms of just the amount of attacking talent that they have. They have great players in midfield, world-class players everywhere. I mean, from top to bottom, I think that they can put the best starting 11 on the field, and that is why they are my favorite to win the World Cup. Obviously, you've got Neymar. I know that you would want to be talking about him
Why
because you love Neymar.
I feel like that's normal. Neymar is one of the biggest reasons I even got interested in international soccer, international football, club and international. There's a lot of Neymar moments that I associate very closely to my personal best moments as a fan. And I really do just wish the best for him. He's coming off a period in his career where he's been doubted more than ever, and he's been his ability and his character and just the man both personally and professionally has been attacked by international media. This is back home and in France, and I think that he's responded well on the pitch. He's had a ridiculous run at PSG this year, scoring goals, being involved in goals. He's been phenomenal this year. And I think that he has a lot of guys around him that'll help him carry the burden. I think with Richarlison, we'll have a good World Cup. He always seems to find the net for this Brazil's side. He kind of punches those goals in whenever it gets down to it, and then they're going to be solid with Alisson and Marquinhos and Thiago Silva leading that defense.
Yeah, and I think they're the clear favorites to win this group. But this is another group where it's going to be a dogfight for second place.
Mm-hmm.
And let's start with Cameroon, the Indomitable Lions. Probably the coolest nickname at this World Cup for a team. But I look at this squad, I look at this roster, and once again, I see solid players. I see solid players at each level of the field.
Mm-hmm.
Some names that stick out to me: Brian Mbeumo. I really like him. Plays on the wing for Brentford. Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, who's recently found crazy form for Bayern.
Yep.
And then Andre Frank Zambo-Anguissa, who was at Fulham, made the move to Napoli, and he's been thriving there this year. So it's guys who are playing well. They're in form, and anything can happen for them.
Yeah, 100%. Cameroon, I think, will be able to put up more than just a fight in this group. They've been to the World Cup in years past, recent tournaments and whatnot, but they haven't been able to win in the World Cup, and this is a team that is one of the most successful African nations, and one of the most prideful, and that's with reason. And I think that it'll be exciting to see them be able to put up a competitive team. And I think that, like as we talk more about this group, we'll be able to figure out just how they stack up.
Yeah, and like I said, there's some very evenly matched teams in this group, and I think unfortunately for Cameroon, they're my pick to finish last. I think the fight for second will be between Serbia, who we'll talk about right now, and then Switzerland, we'll get to in a second. But Serbia, I think what you gotta focus on here is the two big meaty men they're gonna be able to throw up.
That's such a weird way to say.
They're gonna be able to throw up front, man.
They have some talent up there though. Let's talk about them.
Obviously, you've got Dusan Vlahovic, plays for Juventus in Italy. He's been a force for them. Very, very strong, powerful player. And then you've got Alexander Mitrovic, who is finally doing it in the Premier League, scoring goals for Fulham. He's a big, mean dude. I will say the one thing, once again, similar to Robert Lewandowski, we talked about this with Poland. These two players do require a certain amount of service, but unlike Poland, I think that Serbia is more equipped to provide them with that service. You got guys like Dusan Tadic, Filip Kostic, good wide players who can whip in a ball. Sergej Milinkovic-Savic is another very good player. I think Serbia could surprise some people at this World Cup.
I agree. I think that they'll finish second in this group. I think that Cameroon will finish third. I think Switzerland will finish fourth. I think that the Serbia side is just stronger than the other teams. I think that they have more experience, they have more talent, and they're a little bit deeper. And I think that it'll be enough to get them second place in this group. But let's talk about who I guess is the team that you predict to finish.
I don't know. I think Switzerland finishes on the FOTMob World Cup predictor thing. I had Switzerland coming out of the group, but I think I might have to change my mind to Serbia. I have Switzerland finishing third. Okay. But I think it'll be very tight. They have, once again, solid top 5 league players all over the field. Names that stick out to me: Granit Xhaka, who's finding form for Arsenal for what feels like the first time in a long time. Jabril Sow for Eintracht Frankfurt. He's been very solid in midfield. Another team where, they don't have that obvious number 9. Breel Mbolo will be looked on to score goals. But another team that I think could surprise some people if they get out of the group. But I think it'll be a fight with Syria Jesus. It'll be a fight with Serbia. It'll be a fight with Serbia to get out. All right, moving on to the final group here. Another one that I think is very interesting, especially considering the one team that you would think would be the main favorite in this group underperforms very consistently. But let's start with Ghana. The Black Stars have made it the farthest out of any African nation at the World Cup. That was in 2010. They made it to the semifinals, where they lost to another team in this group. So it'll be interesting to see if some rivalry still exists there. But Ghana, a storyline to watch here is their new players, players that have recently switched their allegiance to Ghana. Tariq Lamptey and Iñaki Williams. Iñaki Williams, I think, will start for this team up front. Very good player from Spain, very athletic, good finisher. But I think what's going to make this team tick is going to be Mohamed Kudus.
That's a good take. I mean, he's definitely he's been on an insane tear for Ajax, and he's definitely a player that will be able to play a few different roles for this Ghana side, to say the least. Yeah,
and just a good solid team, a team that no one should be underestimating. Good in defense. Names Mohamed Salisu, Thomas Partey in midfield. Just good players. good players that could, on any given day, I think, be any other team in this group. But the clear favorite in this group, in terms of talent, is Portugal. And they're held back by Fernando Santos. I feel like we've known that for a very long time. Obviously, Ronaldo is the story here. Just like with Lionel Messi, his last World Cup. Of course, just gave that interview with Piers Morgan, an explosive interview in terms of his career. You can go check that out if you would like. But it'd be interesting to see where the focus of this Portugal team is at. But this is the only team in the tournament that has world-class players at every level of the field, in my opinion, and is not one of the favorites.
It's sad to see, man.
It really is.
Portugal's had talent for a while, and they have a few different guys that are world class on that team, and some guys that are really reaching the peaks of their career right now. This should be the time. I mean, this is arguably a better Portugal team than ever before.
I mean, looking over this squad, I mean, I think, like, at least, I think them and Argentina is very close, you know? But, like, just, like, with the level of, with how they perform on an international stage, Portugal just doesn't, over the last few years, they just have not been able to. They won the Nations League, but disappointed in the Euros, and they never live up to the level of attacking talent they have on the field.
Yeah, I understand that take, and I think that's a reflection of the management and the team, not just the team.
Yeah, moving on to South Korea. Probably my pick to finish last in this group, but they're certainly not a bad team. I don't know a ton about some of their players, but obviously Son Heung-min, an absolutely electric attacker, plays for Tottenham in the Premier League. Kim Min-jae is a defender who has burst onto the scene with Napoli this year. He's been playing very well for them. And then Hwang Hee-chan is another guy who's performed at a Champions League level, and is another Premier League player. So just, a team that you can't underestimate. Not a team that I know a ton about. Not a team that I expect to do too much, but not a bad team by any means.
I actually think that Uruguay's recent lack of form has me put South Korea coming out this group. I think that they'll come out this group just because the team plays.
You don't like Ghana?
Well together. I don't like Ghana this year. I think that they just won't be able to defend well enough to. Cause like the other, you have elite attackers on all three teams in this group. Like there's no shortage of goals in this group, and I think that Ghana won't be able to keep up, and they'll probably end their World Cup dreams this year. But yeah, this is another one of those very interesting groups where you could see it finish in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and that last team, of course, is Uruguay. Darwin Nunez, Luis Suarez up front. Luis Suarez, of course, recently made the move back to South America after stints all over Europe as one of the best strikers of all time. He's still got goals in him. Won the Uruguayan league with Nacional this year. Darwin Nunez, of course, plays for Liverpool. Had struggled finding his feet, but now has become a very effective player for them. Rodrigo Bentancur, I think, has become one of the most underrated players in the world. Consistently the best player in that Spurs midfield by a wide margin. And then, you've got guys like Ronald Araujo, who's made an Iron Man recovery from injury to, make it back for this World Cup. Just guys who, want to be here. And they're my pick to finish second in this group. I know
that's a very solid pick.
I know they struggled in qualifying, but when push comes to shove, you want guys who've been here, you want guys who've done it before. And these guys have done it before. Luis Suarez, Edinson Cavani. These are guys who, have been successful on the international stage.
And I completely understand that. This Uruguay team is definitely one of the best, just roster-wise. I think that they have a lot of options, especially with the guys that they have, the stars of the team per se. They're very flexible in the way that they play, and that this team is one that should be able to mesh well together, and like cohesion is a big part of how teams perform in the World Cup typically, and I think that this Uruguay squad does have a chance for that. I mean, we'll see. I just don't think that there's been enough preparation time with this being in the winter for them, and I think that their qualifying form was it wasn't just disappointing, it was concerning how bad they were.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how far I predict them to go in the knockout stages, but I do think they'll come out of the group. All right, well, I mean, that wraps up all the teams. I think that was a pretty comprehensive review of everybody. So who are you picking to win, and who is your predicted player of the tournament?
This is going to be so biased. I just really want Argentina to win, man. I just think it'd be the perfect send-off. And like, no hate in like the whole Messi Ronaldo debate. I don't think Ronaldo deserved it any less or anything. I just think that Ronaldo's best chance was 2018. And the squad just wasn't good enough for him, and now he's reached a point in his career where he's not at his best, and I don't think the team is, good enough. And I just think it's unfortunate the way that worked out for him. But Messi's situation is different. He has the squad behind him. They have that incredible run of 38 games now without a loss. I mean, this team is able to find different ways to win. They beat Brazil in the Gold Cup. What's it called? That's ours.
The why am I blanking on this?
I think it's the Gold Cup.
It's not.
No.
Copa
That's
America.
ours.
It's Copa America.
Copa America. There it is.
Ugh, God.
They beat Brazil 1-0 in the previous Copa America. And I just think that this team is too good. But I think that the player of the tournament will be Neymar. I think Brazil will have a great run, and I think he keeps up his incredible form of scoring an absurd amount of goals and collecting a ton of assists.
I agree with you on your player of the tournament selection, but that is because I'm also picking Brazil to win the tournament.
Fair
I
pick.
think
it's a toss-up between the two of them, really.
they'll be the most entertaining team to watch. And I just think that their talent is too much for some other teams to overcome, especially up front. I mean, I already mentioned it. The hardest thing to do is score goals, and that's one thing that this Brazil team does in bunches, and they do that while also having guys like Marquinhos and Thiago Silva at the back, to shore that up. So, yeah, they're my pick. Neymar, player of the tournament. But I mean, starts on Sunday. I'm excited. Let's have a great World Cup. If you've listened this far, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll be back with our regularly scheduled programming on Monday with the NFL rundown. So yeah, we'll see.
I think we'll just kind of mix the soccer and World Cup coverage into our weekly episodes. So this won't be the last time we talk about soccer. And certainly, if you guys would like us to answer any questions you might have, if you don't know anything or are looking for something to watch for, just wherever you're listening, drop a comment or just reach out. Because I really do want anyone that even gives it a half a chance to really enjoy this World Cup.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, and we will see you on Monday.
Yeah.